Yo, 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 what is going on, everybody? And welcome to Vancity Beats, Eats, and More. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Jamal, and if you're just getting to know Vancity Beats, Eats, and More, we are Jamal and Kazi, and we highlight and spotlight the creative community of Vancity. Now, Vancity, colonially known as Vancouver, is the unceded territories and lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations who have been on this land since time immemorial. We are here at the Beaumont Studios within B-Side Radio, and I'm really, really excited to be speaking with Mr. DJ Carlyle Mark. Now, if you know Carlyle, you'll know that there isn't much about Carlyle online. You know, I was scouring the web, trying to find something, but, you know, we got some gems that we're going to discuss, and this is a great opportunity to get to know the man's himself. So thank you so much for tuning in. Everybody out there, we're live on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. And if you are watching this and enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. Show us some love and tell your friends about Vancity Beats, Eats, and More.
Absolutely,
so, as the name says, DJ Carlyle Mark has been spinning records, the vinyl records, pure wax, for over 30 years using 2 turntables and a mixer, the original way, and without compromise. So today we're going to be talking about Carlyle's life growing up, as well as his deep, deep knowledge of those dusty crates. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me here and for inviting me here. It's an honor. So I'm really looking forward to this.
It is our pleasure, for sure. So let's begin with, where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Ontario, specifically, mostly in Mississauga, and then in Toronto area, but mostly in Mississauga and Oakville area.
And what was your household like while you were growing up?
So, not many people know. So my father is a DJ as well. So growing up in the household, like, you know, my father and then with my parents, they would have people over all the time. So whether it be family and friends, but my father, he'd have his friends over and they'd be in the basement. He'd have his setup and stuff, playing music, all that kind of stuff. So very much it was, you know, music all the time, so to speak. Yeah. So very much a lively whole household, music, and more music.
And more music.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Did your father get that passed down as well?
No, I just think he just has a love for music himself. So I don't know anyone that, like, his not his father or his mother, or no, they weren't into music. They like music, you know, but just being in the Caribbean. But no, no one else in the family, just my dad, loves music. Yeah.
And you mentioned the Caribbean. Is that where your dad grew up?
Yeah, both my parents are from Trinidad and Tobago. Yeah, Trinidad. So, and then they came over here. I was the first one born here, and my brothers and sisters were too. But yeah, they came here when they were young. Yeah.
Do you know how your father got into collecting music?
I think so. He used to play in a steel pan group, with his friends and stuff like that. And I think just from that, then he just started collecting music, just buying records, just like myself, always buying records, and then just came into a love, because people used to call him Disco Nick, because he used to buy just you know, a lot of funk and soul and all that kind of stuff. So that's how he got his name, Disco Nick, and then later on changed to Love Man Nick.
Love Man.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what people refer to him as, the Love Man. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, but he definitely developed a love for vinyl. So, and that's how I got into it.
So there were records spinning.
Oh, all the time, all the time, all the time. He just had the turntables and the equalizers, the big speakers, and all that kind of stuff. And then later on, he got a mixer, and then that's how I learned. Then he got 2 turntables and started mixing, and yeah, I just fell in love with it too.
Did you learn from him?
Absolutely not. No. No, I taught myself. So just watching him and kind of just watching it set up, and then every time so my parents split up after I was older and stuff. So I'd go to his house every weekend. We'd go to his house, and then I would just make my own mixtapes, and he would just let me do my thing. So from that, just him having a DJ mixer and stuff, then I taught myself. But the reason why I'm doing this today is definitely because of my father. Like, I followed in his footsteps. So,
yeah,
absolutely.
Do you remember some of the records that were on heavy rotation while you were growing up?
So the first record I fell in love with of my father's was Marvin Gaye's "Sexual Healing." Yeah, I just used to play that on repeat every time I came there, just on repeat, on repeat, on repeat. Yeah, that's one that sticks out in my head.
Yeah.
And it was on 45, so. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
That was the Love Man, Nick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah. I had no idea what the words were saying, but I just loved just the bass line and the beat of it. So, yeah. Sexual Healing, Marvin Gaye. Absolutely.
Respect, yeah. Did you, what was the first person or DJ that you saw that made you think, I want to do that?
DJ Jazzy Jeff. Yeah. When I saw him doing his thing, I was kind of blown away. Just the Transformer and stuff, how he's doing the Transformer. Jazzy Jeff and definitely DJ Cash Money as well. But I just thought it was unattainable. But then when I went to school and then I saw, DJs doing it kind of thing, and then I was like, okay, this is real. It's something I could do. So, but DJ Jazzy Jeff for sure was the first one I saw do it. Yeah.
Do you remember how old you were when you saw him spin?
I think him and I are pretty close in age. Definitely, this is pre Fresh Prince days, I think. But how old is? I'd say before my teens. I'd say because I had the album DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, Girls Ain't Nothing But Trouble. So on that album, there's a thing called Live at Union Square Mall or something, and then he was doing this routine, and all my DJ friends that are into it, we all just try to pick apart the routine and how it's done kind of thing. The original record he used, and I've been trying to find it for years. I finally found it years ago, and it's funny because my other buddy, I went to his house one time, and with my partner at the time, and I went down to his basement. I said, "You won't believe what record I have," and we're geeking out, and they're just looking at us like, "What are you guys talking about?" And they couldn't understand, but as a DJ, it's like, no way kind of thing. So
yeah,
it's like it's looking up certain records and samples and stuff, and then when you find it, it's just like, oh my gosh, like the heavens open, right? So but
you
yeah,
found
definitely,
the treasure.
yeah, definitely. So I'd say definitely I don't know, maybe 12, 13, no, around 11, 12 probably is when I knew that Jazzy Jeff was like my kind of idol then. Yeah.
And how did it, so you mentioned you would go to your dad's place and start making your own mixtapes and stuff?
So yeah. Okay, so when at first it was just putting songs on tapes, not really mixing, but then when he got the DJ mixer, then that's when I got into mixing and stuff and took it seriously and started playing school dances, stuff like that. So my boys and my friends, they'd go out to clubs and everything, but I'd stay home, and from when I woke up in the morning until I went to sleep at night, I would just be in my basement just mixing records, and that was my thing to do. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That and at that point, so you had records. Where were you buying your first records?
Then it was Sam the Record Man, I believe. Yeah, in Toronto. Yeah, Sam the Record Man, because there wasn't really any like DJ record stores back then. But then a store played a record opened, and then that's where I'd go downtown Toronto, Dundas and Yonge Street, and then I started working there after a while. But before, like, when I was in like elementary school, it'd be like Sam the Record Man, just just kind of like the Sunrise Records, that sort of stuff. So
That was while you were in elementary.
and I didn't have a job then, so whatever money I'd get, if my mother would give me money to buy lunch, I'd take that and go buy a record with it and go without food, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and then no, if my friends had records, I'd go through their records and kind of, can I borrow this? And and just take it and use that kind of thing. So a very small collection I had, which I thought was a lot, but now in hindsight, it was nothing, right? So it's funny because my friends would say, I remember when you used to have like a little crate and it was like your bread and butter, and now look at you. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Too many crates to count now.
There's no such thing as too many crates. Yeah, but a lot of records, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you remember the first record you bought with your own money when you started working and stuff?
I think it was a song called Buffalo Gals by Malcolm McLaren and the Supreme Team. So that was like the breakdancing song back in the day. That and a song called Rocket by Herbie Hancock.
Yeah.
So, but Buffalo Gals, yeah, absolutely.
Did you have friends at the time who were also DJing that you would jam with, or?
No, not really. So mostly people were, I'd say, breakdancing and stuff, So usually, yeah, my friends were dancing, and then I'd be the kind of the DJ that they'd kind of be like, yo, Carlyle's DJing, that sort of thing. And then later on in high school, I had other DJs in my high school, but there was one DJ actually. I don't know his last name to this day, but Bill. So I used to call him DJ Bill. And there's a place in Ontario called Changes. It's not around anymore, but I just used to go to the club and just sit and watch him play. And I could seriously say that the way I play is because of me watching him. Just how he would mix, not by genre, just mix everything with everything. So in Toronto, DJs, they play a hip hop set, or R&B set, or house set, but Bill, he just mixed everything together, and that's how I like to play. Is I'll just mix house with hip hop or whatever, So the way I play is because I was watching him. Yeah.
Just observing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'd be at the club and I would just stand by the booth and just watch him play. Yeah. So I've had people ask me, "Can you teach me how to DJ?" And I'd say, "Sure, but you know what? Just watch me, and that's how you'll learn." And,
yeah.
And some people have that's just by watching. So, yeah.
Did you meet DJ Bill?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I met him. Yeah, he was. I met him, but then he stopped. Then he just stopped playing altogether. Not for any reason. He just didn't feel like doing it anymore. So, another guy, his friend of his, has all his records, and I ask him every once in a while, "You want to sell me the records?" He's not ready yet, though. But yeah. No, I knew Bill, but he was very quiet and shy. But beyond the turntables, he was just kind of another person, just another world kind of thing. So.
Yeah, it's a. You'll be patient,
Yeah,
Eventually,
yeah.
he wants
absolutely.
to sell them
Hope
at one
so,
point.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you were coming up and you said your friends would be like, "Yo, DJ," or Carlyle's DJing, where would that be for the breakdancers and stuff?
Oh, yeah. So, the hangout place would be like my mom's place, which she didn't like, but we would just like get cardboard from like the garbage room and just set it up in our backyard, and have like a ghetto blaster, or try to bring my turntable stuff and just breakdowns, that sort of thing. And then where we lived, there was a bandstand around this man-made lake, so they'd have breakdance competitions there. So, but a lot of house parties. So it would just be house parties first, and then a friend of mine his father owned the club, and then he asked me to come play at the club, and then I played, and then that's when everything started. That's when I started playing clubs. People started recognizing me and know who I was. So I have DJ Tech. Shout out to DJ Tech Jermaine to thank for that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What was the name of the club?
The club, so there was a club, it was called Ocean, Ocean or something like that. And then later they opened a club in London, Ontario called Club Escape. And then that's when I got my debut there. Yeah.
And the waves. Then you started making waves.
Well, you know what? Actually, I learned very quickly that playing in your house is different from playing in a club, because you have to play, to the crowd and what people like. Whereas house parties, you're just kind of playing for your boys and what you guys love and all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't really matter. But playing in a club is definitely different. So it took me a while to learn, but yeah, it was a good experience.
What was the club or scene like when you were growing up in Toronto, in the area you were growing up, in terms of like the music that you're really into?
Okay, so I'm glad you asked that. So in Toronto, I think old school music and there's like the stuff I play. It's common in Toronto. People know you can play it over and over, and people love it. Whereas when I came here, it was different, but in a good way. It's what made me move here. Is when I came here and I went to a club and they were playing kind of like more like underground funk kind of stuff that I would listen to on my own kind of thing, and not really playing the main clubs over there. But here they were playing it, and I was like, what's going on? So that's one of the reasons why I moved here, is because I was like, wow, it's like the stuff I love, they're playing in the clubs here. So that was definitely my draw here, and I find that it was more not as commercial as Toronto. Toronto is it's like it's the same stuff in rotation with, not to I'm not bad mouthing a DJ, but it's kind of like the same stuff played over and over, and you can leave this club and go to another club and you're hearing the same kind of stuff. But over here, I'm doing me, but I find that the crowd, there's not really so much of a crowd here for the stuff that I really love. But there's an old school party and people go to hear that stuff, but it's not, they only come out at a certain time. So to find a crowd that wants to hear that all the time, it's hard sometimes, you know what I mean? So,
yeah.
So, but I know it's I can make it happen. So that's playing at Calabash. I was able to do me, and that's because the owners were from Ontario as well. And whenever people came, it kind of felt like a basement party kind of vibe, they'd say. So I was grateful to play there for the 11 years I did. So.
And shout out to Roger, who
Yes, Roger. Definitely shout out to Roger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who was a guest on our season 1.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. When did you move out here?
2007, 2006, 2007. Yeah.
So
now, but that wasn't when. So I came out here 2006, 2007, but I never met Roger until 2010 or 11 when Calabash opened. So I was back and forth between here and Toronto for a bit before I would get anybody to even kind of recognize that I was a certain kind of DJ. It was hard, but then once I knew that once the right people heard me, then I'd kind of get recognized. But it took a bit. So when even Roger, actually, it's an interesting story. So I can tell it.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Okay,
yes.
So when I first came to Vancouver, I came here for a bit, and then I left, and I came back. This was in 2010, and I went to Biltmore, a place here in Vancouver, and they had a night like it was like kind of like the poetry and then music, and I was just blown away. So I went up to a guy and I said, "Who's putting this on?" And he said, "You have to talk to that guy." And he pointed to Roger. So I went to Roger and I said, "Yo, you know, I'm a DJ from Toronto, and you know, this is what I play, and I'd like to you know, to know how I can get involved with this." So he said, "Okay, we have an open mic every other Tuesday. Come down this Tuesday, check it out." And it was a place called Nyala on, it was Main and King Edward around there. So I went, and then the night was awesome. Spoken word, open mic, MCs, everything. Such an inspiring night. So I said to him, "Yo, you know, can we talk?" And he said, yeah, we're going to talk. Anyways, I was chasing Roger down for like weeks, and he was just brushing me off and not having it. And then I remember I was working at Beach Street at the time, and then Sam, one of the owners at Calabash, had called me and said, "Yo, I'm having like a barbecue jam. Bring a crate of records." I said, so my partner Ty said, "All right, man, this is it." So I said, I grabbed my records and I went down to the barbecue, and then I played a set, but I played classic house first, and Roger was he was on the couch, and he was like, he was sick because I guess he drank too much and everything, so he was passed out on the couch, and he wasn't out. He was just like really sick, and he was just out of it. And then I started playing classic house, and then all of a sudden he just put his hand up and he started jamming down, and then it was on. And I said, "All right." So then
You brought him back to life.
yeah, pretty much. So then I asked my partner, "What's Roger doing?" "He has his hand up. He's dancing." I said, "All right, good." So I said, "Mission accomplished." So then it was a couple of days after he called me and said, "Yo, man, do you want to meet?" And I said, "Yeah, let's meet." And then we met and we talked, and he said, "Yeah, man, you know, I want to get you playing and all this kind of stuff." And then we started hanging out, and then I'd actually went back to Ontario, and then he'd called me and said, "Yo, I'm opening up a spot in Vancouver, and I want you to be the resident DJ." And I said, "Yeah, man." And then I came back here, and then that's when it all started. Yeah. So that it was funny too, is so all the people that I tried to get in touch with to DJ and stuff like that, then they came to Calabash and they saw me playing, and I was the resident DJ and the sound guy there, and they're like, "Yo, man, we should get together." And I was like, "Okay, now you want to." But you know, it's the DJ community here is like, it's all love. Like, you know, we all kind of like, we're nice to each other and everything, you know. It's kind of, we want to be involved and just kind of help each other. So that's one thing I'll say about the community here. Whereas in Toronto, it's kind of like there's little pockets of people that kind of just stay together and do their own thing, and they don't really welcome, you know, outsiders and stuff like that. So being here, it's good, and just even being at the station here, working with people, you know. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're lucky to have you here in Vancity. And so Roger opening Calabash was one of the reasons you had come back to Vancouver?
Yes. So, yeah, because I went back to Ontario, just kind of, yeah, you know, because I love it here, but I went back to Ontario just kind of, I think I went back just because, you know, I remember at the time my sister was getting married, and I was kind of just back in Ontario, but didn't really plan to come back here. But then when Roger called me and told me about Calabash, I was like, "Yeah, man, okay." I said, "How many nights a week?" He said, "No, man, like 5 nights a week kind of thing." I said, "Okay, yep." And that's what I wanted to do, is kind of just make my living DJing. I was doing it for a bit in Ontario, but then I was just like kind of stagnant for a bit. So when I knew I could be here and make a living as a DJ, I was sold on that. So yeah, so if it wasn't for Calabash, yeah, I don't know where I'd be. Like, I don't know if I would have come back here, but yeah, definitely, I'm glad he asked me to do that.
And how long were you the resident DJ at Calabash?
10 years.
Wow. Yeah. For 5 nights a week.
So it was 5 nights a week. So First, it was like when it first opened, it was like Monday to Monday to Friday, and then Saturday reggae nights, which is still going on over there. And then I moved to Kelowna for a bit. I was working at a radio station there, so then it was Tuesday, I think, to Saturday or something like that. Yeah.
So even when you were in Kelowna, you would still come back to play?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's crazy, I know. But
that's dedication.
Yeah.
And love.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it was good at Calabash, because I wasn't just DJing there. I was doing sound as well. So the bands that would come through there, I was doing the sound for them too. So, yeah.
What was the energy like at Calabash while you were
Same
there?
as so when Roger and his partner at the time, Rags, when they were doing the open mic at Nyala, like it was every other week. But when you left, like when you went there, you left inspired, because it doesn't matter if you're doing folk, hip hop, rock, poetry. Everybody there was showing love, and you felt like you weren't afraid to. If you felt nervous, by the end of the night or when you went to perform, you wouldn't feel that, because there's so much love and encouragement in the room. And that was because of Roger and Rags, is how they talked to people and made them feel like that. So you couldn't wait for the next one to come around. It was every 2 weeks, but like you're like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for the next one, because it was just so inspiring, and you just couldn't wait. I never used to like live music until I moved here and just saw the talent and how people. It's about community here. So, even when my brother came to visit me last year, he said, the people that you are around, it's a community, and I said, yeah, that's exactly what it's like. So, and he built it like that. So that's what I love about that.
Yeah. Yes. That I agree with that.
Yeah.
I have only been to Calabash a few times, having moved here a bit more recently. But even just when we spoke with Roger about that and about Rise Up and his philosophies on life.
Yeah, he's all about that.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I didn't answer your question. No. So Nyla was like that, and then when it came to Calabash, it was the same sort of way. So whatever event they'd have there, the same kind of camaraderie. It's about community, and Calabash is about food, music, and art. And, and it was definitely about that. So just people coming together and kind of just really promoting the community and everything. So yeah.
Okay. How much of your vinyl collection is here in Vancity versus still in Ontario?
All of it is here now.
Oh, all of it?
Yeah, so it just came. Yeah, so all of it finally came in October. Yeah, October finally. So
just last month.
Yes, just last month.
The last records made their way.
yeah. So all my vinyl is here now. Yes. Yeah. It's all here now. Yeah. Very happy about that.
How big of a space does it take up?
Yeah. So I have my place, and then I have storage, and then I have another storage, and then I have a friend who actually said, you can use my storage too. So I have like 3 storages of records. So my records in my place plus 3 other storages of my records. Yeah.
How do you choose what you keep at your place?
Whatever I'm playing, like immediately. Like I have some records that I don't play as much, but I'm more disciplined now. So whereas I used to have way more records, but my collection now is just, if I don't play it, then I got rid of it. So, but there's records I play more immediately than others. So like, for example, my friend last week, I was, it was in her storage, so I was taking out the records, and then she saw, oh my gosh, Strawberry Shortcake, oh my gosh, Return of the Jedi. Those I don't play here, right? So they'll just be in my other storage. So, but the records I put, like if I'm playing out a set or a B-side, then they're in my place already. But other records, like soundtracks and stuff like that, they're just in my storage. I still go through them, but they're just not readily available as the other ones are. Yeah.
I reached out to another really great person and deep record collector for some intel, see what kind of questions.
Okay.
His name's Dom. We also
Okay.
know Dom
Yeah,
from
yeah.
season 1.
Yeah.
But he wants to know a couple questions.
Okay.
But he wanted to know what record or album got you into the genre of music of that style. I guess let me try that again. What album did you fall in love with for each genre that you play?
Okay. Okay. So for classic house, it's funny because he mentioned the artist last night. And okay, so for classic house, the group's called Ten City. And I was playing a record last night on a show, and he said this guy's like a Ten City vibe. I'm like, yeah, definitely. So Ten City is one of, like a classic house group. They're just very soulful, and if you love classic house, you know who Ten City is. Okay, so Ten City. For hip hop, I'm not gonna say old school or new school, but it's hip hop in general. There's 3 groups, if I'm allowed to say 3.
Yeah.
So the first one is Smith and Wesson, their first album. Black Moon, Enter the Stage, their first album, and then the Roots' first album. Those albums I can listen to front to back, any time of the day. And then for like the 80s kind of R&B, a group called, which is my favorite band, the SOS Band.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so,
I remember you did a SOS Band
yes,
special,
yes,
and I
did,
was losing my mind.
Yeah. That's my favorite band. So, yeah. And then for like retro and stuff like that, Peter Gabriel and Phil Collins. Like I just love their stuff, and but I just love retro. So, Level 42, Hall & Oates, of course. Yeah. So yeah. And what else? That's pretty much I covered, I think.
What, like funk?
Oh, funk. Yeah. Like Funkadelic, Bootsy.
Yeah.
But Midnight Star, I'll say. I love Midnight Star. A lot of their music, like Freakazoid and No Parking on the Dance Floor, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So what are all the genres or styles of music that people can hear you spinning?
Yeah, old school funk, like retro, like the Hall & Oates, that sort of stuff. Old school hip hop. So when I say old school hip hop, like Biz Markie, Tribe, Run DMC, Houdini, Curtis Blow, like more the 80s stuff. I spin some 90s, but I love the 80s stuff. Rap, I'll say, more than hip hop. I love hip hop, but I like rap more, the earlier stuff, because that's when I started DJing. So I love that stuff, and then I heard other DJs kind of playing it. So yeah.
Were you finessing your own routines?
Yeah. So when I first started DJing, like I was doing remixes without even realizing I was remixing, and that's when my father said he was going to send me to this music school. It's a production school, Trebas, and because he saw what I was doing.
Yeah, and could you explain what that was for
So-
people, for all our parents who are tuned in?
Explain what do you want me to?
Like what you were doing was the remixes.
So like my father, he had a little Boss drum machine, and then I'd fool around with it and make beats on it, and he's like, "How you do? What are you doing?" So, but I didn't know. I was just like, it just came natural to me. So then I put that aside, and then when I had the turntable and stuff, I would kind of have a beat playing, and then on 12-inch records they have an instrumental, the original song, and then they have a cappella, which is with no beat kind of thing. It's just a voice. So I would take that and then mix it on top of another instrumental, and then my father saw me doing this, and he's like, "You're remixing." I was like, "What are you talking about? I'm just playing music, like fooling around." He said, no, that's called remixing. I said, okay. So then he said he took me to this school called Trebas Institute, which is a recording and music production school, and just explained to the teacher what I was doing and stuff, and played some of my stuff for him. And he said, yeah, your son's really talented. But I didn't go that year because I knew I would fool around and I wouldn't really, I wouldn't take it seriously. So then a year later, I went and I was working in a recording studio, and then that's how I learned and stuff. But like I said, I was just doing it, not even knowing that I was remixing. So, which is what I do when I play. So when I play, people see me doing that and they're just like, wow. Some people can't fathom it because they're like looking, I'm like, what are you looking for? Where's your computer? How are you playing? So that's what do you mean? So, but yeah, so that's when I play, that's what I do. Miss TKL said last night, you have to let people know, because I did a remix last night and she didn't know that it was a remix. She thought it was just a record. Like that. So, but that's what I spent many years doing, is making stuff sound seamless, and so sometimes I have to let people know, okay, this is a live remix,
Yes.
kind of thing. So yeah.
For real, because it's so smooth
Thank you.
when Carlyle
Thank
plays.
you. Thank you.
Yeah. Because, at B-Side, we were really lucky. When we started B-Side just over 2 years ago, and we were looking for programmers, I remember being in contact with you, and you were eager to have a show, and we were excited to have you. Unfortunately, you weren't able to come on right when we opened, but eventually you came back and hosted a show, and now you still host a show with us, which I feel so lucky to have you as part of B-Side, and I love that you enjoy being here.
Oh yeah, I love being here, and I love playing music. So you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But the environment and the community and the people here, I just love being here. It's you guys made an awesome space for. Thank you guys for making this space available for us to play. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank we.
Yeah, exactly. Thank we. Yes.
But yeah, like you were just saying, you have to remind people sometimes of what you're doing, because not only is it it's a skill that is original to the art form.
Exactly, which is why I'm all vinyl and stuff. So to speak to that, years ago I used to post videos, do videos, Turntable Tuesday I used to call it.
On your YouTube channel.
Right. So I used to do that every Tuesday, and it was me doing live remixes. So a friend of mine said to me one morning, she says, yeah, I love that song you played this morning. I said, what do you mean? The song you played, like, I love it. And I said, okay, you have no idea what I was doing. And she said, yeah, you played a song. I said, no. So I said, okay. That's when I said, okay, I have to make a video explaining what I do. So I did. And that was the most watches I got when I explained that video, because as DJs, sometimes we just assume that people know the terminology and what we're doing, but it's not like that. So, and it wasn't until a few years ago, so I was like, okay, I have to start explaining to, how I'm doing it and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, we just assume that people know, right? So, sometimes I do explain it. Sometimes I forget.
Yeah.
But people remind me, like Tina last night.
Yeah.
Sorry, Miss TKL. So you have to explain to people what you're doing, and I said, yeah, okay, yeah. So I do, but sometimes I forget.
Yeah, and I mean, especially nowadays, like the DJ technology that has been developed and that's out and accessible now, like there's Serato, which is a DJ software that a lot of people use. Then they just released their stems technology, which allows you to isolate certain layers of every song just with the press of a button.
Yeah.
So was there a time when you had ever thought about trying to go into the digital realm?
Okay, so there's times when I've had to, just because of space and I couldn't bring my vinyl, that sort of thing. So, but the times that I have used like Serato or Tractor is when people see me using it, like other DJs are like, you still use it like you're playing vinyl.
Yeah.
And I said, well, yeah, that's how I play. You know what I mean? So I find that people that use a Serato or a Tractor, they're kind of like looking at the screen rather than using their ears. So like when I've used Serato and Tractor, I still, as you know, so for people out there, the thing with the software is you can press cue points. So you don't have to spin the record back like a DJ's, but I use it like that still.
Yeah.
If I'm using Serato, I'm spinning the record back, and when I know I could just hit a button, but it's just, I'm so used to playing that way, and I like playing that way. So I still like playing, like a purist kind of,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, people mentioned, even when you use it, you still use it like you're playing vinyl. I said, well, yeah, so that's how I like to play. But the thing is, sometimes what I've seen DJs that if you use Serato for a very long time and then they try to go back to vinyl, it's hard for them,
It's like relearning.
Right, exactly. So then I say, go back and forth, still kind of use the Serato, but go back and use the vinyl kind of thing. So, but the times when I've used Serato or a Tractor, yeah, I still use it like I'm playing vinyl. So.
And for you, why is it important for you to continue playing the way that you learned and playing vinyl?
Because to me, it's about being a purist, and also to me, it's like that's how it started. So for me, it's I don't want to learn anything else. Like I know how to, but I'm just very stuck in that, and I just love vinyl, and I think it separates me from the rest of the people. There's everybody's kind of on Serato or Tractor, and I think it's like it's niche to be playing vinyl. You know what I mean? So, and that's not why I do it, but I love vinyl, but I think it definitely separates me from people. So,
definitely.
Yeah.
What do you love about vinyl?
The snap, crackle, and pop sound. So yeah, it's like there's this waitress that used to work at Calabash, and she used to say, I love that. Even my sister still to this day, I love that sound of, the vinyl and stuff like that. And I love that too. The only thing I don't like is when it skips. So,
Yeah.
So, but no, I just love the sound of vinyl. It's more full. It's like, I can tell the difference between an MP3 or MP4 or whatever and real vinyl. So yeah, I just love the sound of it.
What about the experience of acquiring vinyl and buying it?
Oh my gosh, yeah, I could spend hours in records. I went to Beat Street yesterday.
Shout out Beat Street.
Yeah, Beat Street Records. Just briefly, just to kind of, I go there every Sunday usually. So, Avi, the owner, hey Carlyle, did you see the new arrival? I said no, and then he said, there's, I don't know, there's like 10 crates of new arrivals, and I said, yeah, I have to come back on a day that I could just be here in the morning and leave when you close, because I'm gonna devour these records.
Yeah.
Right? So, but yeah, I can easily spend hours. I remember back in Toronto, my father and I, we left in the morning, we went downtown Toronto, and then we're walking, and we came upon this record store that we'd never seen before, and he said, "Want to go in?" He said, "Yeah." So we went in, and then I think it was about 5 hours later.
Yeah.
But he was in one part of the store, I was in the other part of the store, and we didn't talk or see each other for like 5 hours. And then at the same time, we're like, "You ready?" "Yep." And we left. But it was a good 5 hours, and we didn't do anything. We were just in our own world in the record store, and we didn't even I wasn't like, oh, we weren't looking at our watch or anything.
Yeah.
We were just the same thing, just going through records and stuff like that. Funny thing, my father's all digital now. It's like we switch roles.
Yeah.
Like, I play vinyl, and he's totally he's on Tractor, but yeah.
Interesting.
I remember I was wearing a shirt. So for people that know, vinyl comes 33 in the third or 45 RPMs. So that's the 7 inches. So I was wearing a shirt that said 33 or 45 one time. My father says to me, "What's that?" I'm like, "Seriously, Dad? Like,
Come on.
You went on Serato and Tracker for so long, you forget what it means, you know?" So
Yeah.
So it was just funny. So he's all digital now, and I'm like vinyl. Like we switch roles. So,
Yeah, holding it down
yeah,
though.
yeah.
What do you look for when you're buying records?
So I'm more selective now. So I have like there's records I have and like sometimes I definitely always buy doubles, just being the DJ cutting back. And
Oh
then,
yeah, can you explain that?
sorry. So
Yeah.
if I buy a record and I know that I love it, I'll buy 2 copies, and that's for beat juggling. So just going back and forth between the 2 records.
The same song.
Right. Or so either I buy it for that or I'll buy it because a lot of what I like to do as well is I'll mix in the instrumental first and then I'll maybe do a remix through a cappella on it and then I'll bring in the original vocal afterwards. So that's why I buy 2 copies. And then sometimes, if I just see it for a good deal, I'll just buy 3 and 4 copies, or if my friend needs it. But a lot of time what happens is I'll buy a record and I'll be like, because I have so much fun, I forget that I have it when I get home. I'm like, oh man, I already have this. So I'll have like 4 copies of the same record. But, then I just like, all right. But then sometimes my buddy will say, "Oh, I'm looking for so-and-so." I was like, "Yeah, man, all right, I'll give you a copy." So, I just love buying vinyl. But, pardon me, usually what I look for is older stuff. And then now they're starting to make a lot of reissues,
Yeah.
which is oh my goodness. People buying records now these days are very lucky because they have compilations now that have like all these songs on one record, whereas back in the day I had to buy them like 1 by 1 by 12 inch, and now it's an easy game now. You're getting all these songs on one compilation.
But they're different because the 12 inches back in the day, the singles were the original pressings.
Yeah, I don't care about all that.
You don't care about the original?
Some people, I think phonographs care about, this is the original pressing of 1976, and I don't care. If me as a DJ, I just want the song. I don't care if it's the first or the 500th issue. I just want the song. So I don't care about that so much. But some people care about that. But to me, it's more about having it on vinyl and being able to play it, right? So I find myself like I'll buy. So there's reissues and stuff, and the stuff they're pressing these days is a lot louder and cleaner than from back in the day. So and the pressing is a lot better. So I buy I'll buy like a newer version. So if I have like an Aaliyah record, and then they come out with say like the best of, then I'll buy that because even though I have every 12-inch, it's good to have it all on one album kind of thing, So.
Then you can fit more records in your crate
exactly
when you're going to a gig.
Yeah, exactly. So I still buy old stuff. If there's something new I hear and if it's on vinyl, I'll buy it too. But mostly like older stuff is what I buy. Yeah.
Do you listen or keep up with some of the newer artists and
depends who it is. Like there's a couple of new artists, if I like their music, definitely I'll buy it. Yeah. Just because to support and because I want it on vinyl, you know what I mean? So to say that you have it on vinyl kind of thing and look back a few years and be like, yeah, it's on vinyl. So,
yeah. What is it about the sound and style of the records you grew up with, the music that you came up listening to, that holds a dear place within you?
I think so. For me, music is like it's very therapeutic for me, and when I listen to music, it's like I'm picking apart each instrument in the song. So it's all about a feeling too. So and I'm all about bass lines. Like the bass lines is what you too actually. I've played a couple of songs. Bass line, man. I said, yes. So the bass line is what hits me. So when I listen to music, I kind of listen to it differently Well, I don't know, maybe everyone does, but I listen to it differently. I'm hearing each instrument and all that kind of stuff, and it's kind of like a feeling for me that I can't explain.
Yeah.
It's kind of euphoric, I guess. Yeah.
I think that feeling gets expressed too when you're playing as someone who has been in the room while you play.
Yeah, no,
yeah.
no, thank you for saying that. People have said that, absolutely, yeah. So if I'm doing a set and I'm enjoying, yeah, absolutely. So you could speak to that, yeah.
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 So you had referred to these remixes that you're doing where you're taking the a cappella vocals of one song and putting them with the instrumental of a completely different song. A lot of the time you're doing them live in your DJ set. You have to remind people because they just think it's one song, but you're actually playing two.
Yeah.
And recently, or at least I've seen that you've been releasing these live remixes on your Bandcamp.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's said that you've been making these remixes for two decades,
well,
or longer.
Yeah. There's I just started. Yeah, I think last summer is when I started putting them on. But I've had these remixes in my head for a long time, and I just started releasing them. There's a lot more, So, and it's I wish I would have did it long time ago, but I'm doing it now. So,
yeah, and that's one way that you can support Carlyle's efforts too. Is you can support by buying these remixes on his Bandcamp page, and also just hearing the blends because they're so smooth. It's like they could have just fit together and been their own tracks. It's like you said, they've been in your head for a while. As you've been listening to these tracks over the years, you've just been kind of putting them inside you, like, oh, this would go super well with this.
Well, I could be doing anything and then just, oh, that would sound good with this.
Yeah.
It's just, there's no rhyme or reason. It'll just happen. Like, I don't know, it just pops in my head. Yeah. And that's one of the things my father saw is that I could just be anywhere and then all of a sudden I'll try something and then people like, did you just think about that now? Yeah. Or even when I'm DJing, sometimes I'll have an idea and then I'll just do it on the fly.
Yeah.
Right. So, that's what I love about that is so I have to cue it up and find out, right on the fly, the tempo and the pitch and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's a labor of love. I love doing this.
And one thing I've noticed with you is that you have, in addition to vinyl, you have a ton of music equipment.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah.
So many like samplers and other pieces of equipment. And you've also made like custom plates or face plates for some of them, which is super cool.
Thank you.
And I've also seen that you've been involved with a group called the Record Players.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
Okay, so years ago, so my friend Gary Crawford, he lives back east, and he has the same mindset as I do when it comes to vinyl, and he only plays vinyl as well. So then I started a party that we used to do back east called Vinyl.
Yeah.
Which says it all. So,
yeah.
So we just had a vinyl night and stuff like that, and then people used to come out to that, and then he's like, so people used to come and they'd be like, yo man, you guys are playing all vinyl, this and that, and I was like, yeah, because everyone was on Serato or a Tractor. So I said, you know what, we gotta kind of maximize this first, So then one day I was just like, the record players, that explains everything. And so I called my buddy, he was a graphic artist, and I said, yo, can you make a logo, the record players? And he said, yeah, okay. So first it was just supposed to be myself, the record player, but then I wanted to involve my buddy Gary, so I called the Record Players. So that's how it started. And then Gary started his own business, so he's still involved, but he's just trying to get his business off the ground. So
Yeah.
I just kept it the record players. But the idea actually was to make it a group of DJs that play vinyl. So first it was just him and I, but then I was like, I want to take this further. So if I do an event, it'll just be people playing vinyl, and then it's called the record players. So that's how it started. Yeah.
And that says it all, like you said. All Vinyl is the name of the radio show that you have here. In what can you tell us a little bit more about the equipment you have too?
Okay.
And
Yeah, well, so All Vinyl, the name of the show is basically, it's not so much about the music, it's just more about the medium I'm playing. So, and I'm a music lover, so you'll hear like hip hop, you'll hear house, you'll hear rock, new wave. So it's about that, but at the same time, I kind of want people to see and experience the way I play as well. Mm-hmm. So, the equipment I have is I have an obscene amount of turntables, samplers as well, and I have some synthesizers as well, but a lot of samplers I do have, and not just because I like to, just how I play. I like to remix stuff. I also like to take a beat and kind of loop it or manipulate it a bit. I used to do music production, but now I'm more into music remixing.
Yeah.
So I call myself a beat maker, kind of remix.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And DJ mixers.
Yeah.
How many DJ mixers do you have?
I've seen amount as well. I have a lot, and it will continue. I have a sickness. I tell people, I just love. You know what? I probably maybe 15 DJ mixers I have right now. And probably I think I have only 10 turntables right now.
Only, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a sickness because it's rooted in love.
Yeah,
so passion.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Yeah.
Where can people find you in Vancity? Are you playing out?
Here, of course. Every second and fourth Sunday, right here at B-Side. I also play at Guilt & Co. I alternate with the other DJs there. And that's it right now. Yeah. Just those two places right now. The Diamond is not anymore. So, But at Guilt & Co., I tell people it's not me doing my thing, really, because I'm playing in between the bands. And people come out to hear the bands. Now, sometimes I do my thing. It depends on the band that's playing. Like, there's a couple of funk bands there. And then when a funk band plays, then I do my thing in between because I just kind of keep up that vibe kind of thing. But mostly I'm just, it's kind of like just background music, So I play to the crowd. So, and sometimes I'm playing like Seven Nation Army or like Blur, like that side, U2, that kind of stuff. But I'm playing to the crowd, and they love it. So it's not, they can go hear me play there, but I'm not doing me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So So right now it's just my radio shows is where I'll be shining. So up until now, I mean for now, and I want to do events in Vancouver, but I find, I don't know, people go out anymore kind of thing,
I think so.
Yeah, So I don't even claim to know what's around anymore. So, do you go to clubs and stuff still?
I don't go to clubs, but I go to events.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
like more underground spaces.
Right, yeah.
People.
So that's what I know I have to
Yeah.
do. That's what I will do, but I'll do it like in the early year, after the winter is gone. Is what I'll start doing, because I just got all my vinyl here in October. So in the new year is when I'm gonna be looking to do DIY stuff.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, anybody out there who's looking for the smoothest and most versatile vinyl DJ,
I appreciate that. Right? Thank you.
Hit up Carlyle. What are you focused on now for yourself?
my focus is doing live streams and just getting my name out there to people that don't know about me yet. So, and I think that doing this at B-side and then on Mixcloud, that's the way to get my name out there, because I want to spread the horizon and kind of let people know me in other parts of the world and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
definitely focusing on that. Yeah.
Yes. We like to ask our guests their favorites amongst the local community. I would love to ask you, who are 3 Vancity musicians that you love?
Musicians?
Yeah. It can musicians or DJs, but you mentioned that you really like the live music here.
Yeah.
So
okay, so Don Pemberton is definitely one of them. There's, oh my God, you put me on the spot here. The reason why I'm saying this, I could name people, but I don't want to offend people.
No, that's why it's
he
your
didn't
favorite.
name me, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So let me say this though. There is so much talented people in Vancouver on a whole. So for me to just name, okay, the reason why I said Dawn is because Dawn, if she does, first of all, she has her own style, but if she does a cover of a song, you will not know it's that song, because she makes it her own in a style that, is amazing. There's another person at Gilton called Bradley. Oh my gosh, I can't remember his last name, but him too, he's just a superstar, and I don't know what he's doing in Vancouver. He should be touring the world. And Dave Morin.
Yeah.
I love Dave Morin, man. So, and he started at Calabash, like just doing open mics there, and yeah. So, Dave Morin, definitely.
What is your favorite record that you have?
I can't pick a favorite record. Okay, but off the top of my head, if I have to, it's called Jewel's Groove by Jewel. Not the country singer Jewel, no. It's definitely a funk record, and as soon as people hear this, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I should be roller skating right now." And I was looking for that record for years and years, and I finally got it. So, Jewel's Groove by Jewel. I'll play it on my next show. That's the song I will start off with on my next show.
Nice. I think a lot of us who are watching have some research to do. Go home and dig online, just as you dig all over for your records and your equipment. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you both, Jamal, Kazi. Thank you very much for having me here. I think this is a great thing you guys are doing. Vancity beats, eats,
and more.
Yeah, it's awesome. So thank you. I appreciate you having me here, and me being able to tell some of my history and stuff.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you opening up and sharing about how you grew up and your journey through DJing and collecting vinyl. And thanks to everybody who's been tuning in. We're live on YouTube. My name is Jamal, and you've been watching Vancity Beats, Eats, and More, featuring DJ Carlyle Mark. Much love. Peace.